Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Entrepreneurial Collective podcast, where we tell it like it is, and it is like we tell it. I'm your host, Dickie, and folks, it has been a minute. For those of you that aren't familiar with who I am, that's my fault, not yours. Stay cool. You're going to have time to find out. But to those of you that have been with me for a minute, following, the automotive portion of my journey online, you have heard bits and pieces about me talking about this day, talking about this legacy project, and it is finally here and arrived after years, almost 4, in the making. And what are we talking about? We're talking about the Entrepreneurial Collective. I started my business as an entrepreneur, almost 15 years ago now. And what an adventure it has been, and what an adventure it is going to continue to be. However, along the way, I've learned a number of things. I've learned that there is a small remnant of human beings on planet Earth that are motivated to achieve the things they've only dreamed about in the past. I've also come to notice that there's a far greater group of human beings on planet Earth that have given up, that accept mediocrity, and they actually like to huddle, get together, and support each other on thinking everything should be free and whining and pissing and moaning about what they don't have in life. Well, if you are one of them, you've probably clicked this off already, and if you're not, this is exactly where you need to be. This is exactly where you belong. This podcast, I put it together for a reason. I'm tired of the systems that I see existing on planet Earth that have been archaic in design and have not worked for decades at this point. And I'm tired of seeing a lot of human beings, both young and old, getting fed up with this, realizing all of these systems that we are taught and shown are broken, and are dying to find a way out, and are willing to do what is necessary to find that way out instead of rolling over and playing dead. This podcast is designed to really feed that entrepreneurial spirit that exists in all human beings. It's not only designed to feed that, but it's also designed to show you along the way how to get there, right? All of the steps, and to provide you with an avenue of support. An avenue where the world is bombarding you with media and negativity, telling you what can't be done, telling you what's wrong with the world, and very few people jumping out and letting you know that the world is an absolute awesome place as long as you know how to play inside this thing called the world and planet Earth. Now, wow, there is so much to get to, and that is exactly why we've got this show. That's exactly why we've got these episodes lined up for you. It's really important that I lay the groundwork as to exactly why we're here and what it is we're going to accomplish on this journey. That's why I love calling this particular episode the Genesis, right? This is the genesis of the entire program, the entire movement that is the Entrepreneurial Collective. Now, you're going to notice a few things right here. You're going to notice there's a link, and this link is going to be a link that you will remember in the future as the link that saved your life, okay? And you'll have plenty of time to click on that and investigate that. But when you click on that link, you're going to discover there's an avenue and a lane that I've created for all entrepreneurs to tap into the resources and information that are necessary to not only achieve their desired results, but guarantee them. That's right, folks. I'm not in the business of crossing fingers, wishing, hoping, and wanting, because we know those that wish, want, and hope never have. That's why they're wishing and wanting and hoping. It's people who make decisions that are going to ultimately win in life, and that's what we are in this here group, the Entrepreneurial Collective. We're a bunch of decision makers. However, what I do want to talk about is, a video you're going to see when you go to this link, and I want to talk about it in a bit greater length, because again, this is about a journey, and the genesis of this journey happened many moons ago growing up as a child. And I'm sure there's many of you out there that share the same feelings and sentiments that I do. What am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about, being born, growing up, going into, things like school, these education systems that have been created by some very clever people, I might add, that exist on planet Earth, to basically prevent you from experiencing exactly what you were born to do. There's a lot of things I'm going to say during these episodes, and you'd be very smart to carry a paper and a pen with you while you're listening. One of those things being nobody is better at doing what you were created to do on the entire planet, right? Nobody. Human beings, we're like snowflakes. No two are the same, and all of us have arrived here with different gifts. And it's exactly inside of those gifts, inside of those purposes, that the amazing future that you've only seen in your dreams when your eyes are shut, that's the only way you're going to achieve the things you want in life, is by tapping into those purposes, tapping into those gifts, tapping into those things that make you and you unique. Think about this. I mean, me personally, I remember being in school, being in these systems, right? And it didn't take long. I remember thinking things along the way like, it's funny, school, 9 to 3, right? 9 to 3, they give you 2 recesses and a lunch. I remember being told, don't be late from recess, or, there's going to be trouble, right? I remember being told, don't be late from lunch, the same thing. I also remember as I started to grow up and grow older that a lot of these systems really mirrored where they expected us to take our next steps after, school, after high school, college, university, whatever it may be. I'm talking about jobs, folks. I'm talking about those jobs that some of you watching this currently have. And I understand why you're there, because you haven't figured out a way to release yourself from that prison and experience the exact life you want and deserve to live. But isn't it funny? Those jobs, right, were very similar. You start at 9, you end at 5, right? You've got 2 breaks and you've got a lunch. Don't be late from those breaks. You see where I'm going? They started even in pop culture to make songs about this, to establish some kind of normalcy. Like, think of this craziness. Working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living. I have no idea who sings that song. It escapes me right now, and I don't care. But you see how even in pop culture, we've got this messaging that's constantly being put out to us, right? To make us feel like we're doing the right thing or the normal thing. It's important to understand who you are as a human being. And the fact is, one of the main concerns you have, deep-seated concerns, is to be accepted by the world. So while everybody else is miserable in these particular existences, they want you to feel as though this is normal. And we all know misery loves company, which is why all of you show up to these jobs, stare at each other thinking, what the heck are we doing here? But you continue to say, hey, it's okay. They gave me a free coffee today because I was on time. This is a great place to work. Yeah, that's what they told me, so I believe it. Well, my point is this. From school, you ended up in these systems. I know it happened to me. And, stories like this is really what I want to dive into deep on this podcast to share with you. I remember personally that I had a position with the bank, right? 19 years old, right? And I'm working at the bank. Hey, what are you doing, Al? I work at the bank. Wow, good for you, right? It's funny, people would try to pat me on the back like this title or saying I worked at a bank was a cool idea. But one story that comes to mind is I remember working for a bank. I won't name the bank, no need to. We'll just call it the bank. But I was in the mail room of this particular bank. Yeah, pretty amazing position, right? No, it wasn't. I think I was making $11.50 an hour at the time. However, I'm inside this bank and, I'm working. Now, my parents, God love them, they thought that this was my saving grace. Yeah, because I was working at a bank. And if you work at a bank, there's got to be some future there, right? It's a bank. This is how people think. It's so crazy to me. But in my particular situation, I didn't do well in these learning institutions, right? I didn't finish high school, and it wasn't due to a lack of ability, rather an immense lack of interest for what they were teaching me, right? And because of that, and because I didn't have a high school education, everybody thought that I was just going to be in a factory banging a hammer and then die. Like, it was really grim the way they described my future. So we'll get into that a little deeper on another episode. But my point is because I was in this job, right, as at the bank, everybody thought this was my life preserver. I mean, even my parents, they were like, oh my God, okay, he still stands a chance to amount to something, right? Because he's at the bank. You know what was funny about the bank? I'm in this mail room, and I'll never forget, I was working with four other people. That's right. The average age of the 4 other people was like 60 something, right? I'm 19 at the time. And we're in the mail room. And I remember every day we would have these buckets of mail. And we would each, split them up evenly, and you'd get your bucket, and you had to open the mail and sort the applications. They were insurance applications and things like that. Well, we would sort these applications, and that was your job for the day. I remember getting there the first week, and I'm like, okay, this is what we do. It was real difficult for me because staying awake was a problem. This was so boring, right? And but I would go through the motions, right? I would do my job. It didn't take long until I started looking around and I was like, my gosh, like the oldest person I worked with was 70 something, I remember. And I thought to myself, they spend the entire day doing this. And this is like an hour and a half, 2 hours max of work. So what I ended up doing, because in case you can't tell, I like the sound of my own voice and I like talking to people, is I would rifle through my work quickly, and then I was able to get on to another duty where I could deliver some mail across 2 floors in this big office building that was the bank. Now, what do you think I did? I was a social butterfly. As I went around delivering the mail to everybody, I was, shooting the shit with everybody. I was talking everybody's ear off because I was bored, and that was way more fun than being in that mail room. I'll never forget the day I got pulled into an office. Alan, yes? We need to talk. Sure. What's going on? I was brought into the office, and I was being told, hey, man, you're talking too much to the other people, right? And we can't have you doing this. You need to be working and stuff. And I remember saying to him, I'm like, well, yeah, but the challenge here is I whip through that work super fast. And, I'm just kind of making the day stretch out. This is where I first knew there was a problem with this thing called job or having a job. Because while they were getting upset at me, I remember looking at them and I said, hey, I've got an idea. Why don't you fire the other 4 people in here who spend an entire 8-hour day doing their job? You can pay me $25 an hour instead of $11.50. I'll do all of their work and mine and still deliver the mail. And I will not have time to talk. And you guys will end up saving yourselves like $20, $30 an hour over the stretch of a day, 8-hour day. It's about $240. As I said that and looked at them, it's like they couldn't even keep up with the math. And then you know what they told me? That's not how it works. I said, what? What? Excuse me? And then I was like, you mean you want to pay me this money and you just want me to slow down and do the job slower so it looks like I'm busy all day? And you know what they told me? They were like, yeah. That's where I realized this is insane and this is crazy. It wasn't shortly thereafter that I ended up leaving that job. Now, why did I leave the job? Well, number one, because I felt like I was going to jump off a cliff if I didn't. But number two, there was an intern. There was a girl who worked at the bank, and she was actually from England. And I remember asking her, she was a few years older than me, and I remember asking her, I said to her, England, wow, what are you doing here? You know what she told me? She said to me, I want to travel. And what I did is I picked 3 destinations. She took Vancouver, Canada, Toronto, Canada, and New York City, right? She put those 3 on pieces of paper, threw them in a hat, shook the hat up, and whatever one she picked is where she was going. Well, obviously, she picked the best city on the planet, Toronto. Yes, I'm biased. Settle down. But I always found that super fascinating. I was like, man, that takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of courage to just, pick up and leave. But I found the adventure behind it to be insanely amazing. I was like, I need to do that in my life. So when I was having this experience at this job where people are telling me, we don't want you to be super efficient, do the work of 4 people. We would rather burn money, don't tell anybody, work slower, everything I just described. I knew this wasn't for me. Well, it was around that same time I had an opportunity arise. You see, I had never been on a plane before in my life. And so I had an opportunity where a friend of mine who was from Trinidad, I was over at his house. This was around wintertime, and I'm talking in 2000. It was around January of 2000. And we're having dinner, and his uncle, who was from Trinidad, was over. Needless to say, if you're from Trinidad or have ever been, those folks like their Johnny Walker Black Scotch, okay? Johnny Walker and coconut water to be exact. But we were getting into a couple of these on this particular evening. Me, my buddy, some of his family, but his uncle, most importantly. Well, as we were talking, his uncle said to me, you know something? You would do great selling garage doors for me back in Trinidad. And I laughed. I was like, man, they got garage doors down there? Yes, my ignorance was at an all-time high. I just told you I had never been on a plane before in my life. But as we continued talking, he started to explain to me that he too, as a young man, traveled. And he found that experience to be invaluable in his life. And so as he talked and as the night went on, we were having a good laugh. And he had said to me, he said, you know, you should come down. You should travel. You know, it would be great for you. And if you ever did want to come, you could come and stay by me and you could sell garage doors with me. I remember looking at him and I said to him, be careful what you say. I just might take you up on that. We continued to laugh. The night came to an end. He and his family ended up flying back home to Trinidad and life went on. Well, again, this is all happening while I'm working at the bank. One evening, after a day of work at the bank, I was at a friend's house and we were ordering Chinese food. And I was talking about, I'd really like to, travel. I've never been on a plane before. I've got this girl I work with. She's from England. I told, she picked a name out of a hat. I think this is so cool. I'd like to do that. And, I've got this friend of mine's uncle who's telling me, come on down. He's laying the carpet out for me. Like, I've got an opportunity here. It's funny. This is also when I started to learn when you think about a special opportunity that really feels right in your gut and you start to share it with other people, it's amazing how many people start to show you the negativity, right? Because they're afraid of doing something like that. Oh, what are you going to do down there? You don't know anybody down there. Oh, I don't know if I would do that. This is how they talk, right? But when you trust your gut, it is what it is. Well, back to this friend's house I was at. We ordered Chinese food that night, and I'll never forget. I opened my fortune cookie, and the fortune said, adventure can be true happiness. I've kept that fortune cookie for 20-something years. I remember I put it between two pieces of tape, and that was the day I made a decision. I'll never forget about this decision because when I made the decision, it was the next day I called my dad up, right? My poor parents, they thought I was crazy. They're like, what's this kid doing with his life? He's coming, he's going, he doesn't know what he's up to. And in fairness to them, I didn't. I was exploring. I was still figuring things out because the world was telling me I was going to be in a factory banging a hammer the rest of my life. And again, I wasn't having that. But I remember calling my dad up and I said, Dad, I've made a decision. I'm going to Trinidad. Can you help me with the ticket? I had never bought a plane ticket before. My dad, was in the logistics business. So he knows all about, flights and tickets and traveling. And he said to me, son, and I was like, yeah. I said, Dad, I'm doing this. And you know what? God bless him. He said, okay, let me take a look for you. He found me a ticket down to Trinidad. And it was $350. I'll never forget that, $350. Now, to anybody who's from Trinidad, to all my West Indian friends out there, the ticket had me flying to Trinidad and landing on Ash Wednesday. I can hear you laughing right now. Now, to those of you who aren't familiar, down in Trinidad every year, they've got the absolute biggest party on the planet. It's called Carnival. Google it, and yes, that's what I'm talking about. Well, Carnival ends on Ash Wednesday. You see, if you flew out a week earlier, the tickets were $2,000 a ticket. Why? Because everybody on the planet is trying to fly to Trinidad. Supply and demand, you know how that works. Including a bunch of my friends from up here. They were all going down for Carnival. Needless to say, I was broke. I didn't have any money, so the cheapest ticket I could find was the one I was taking, and if you flew in on Ash Wednesday, it was only $300 and something. I remember buying that ticket, and I remember leaving the bank. I remember when I left the bank, and I remember heading to the airport the day I was going to fly out to Trinidad. I remember my parents dropping me at the airport. I remember my mom, God love her too. Tears, man, tears, right? She's saying she's looking, her son never been on a plane. He's not going somewhere, in the country. He's not just going down south of the border to the States. He's going to a whole other continent, or, he's going down to Trinidad. And she was worried. And I understand why. Me, ignorance is bliss. I didn't know any better. Little did I know about what adventure I was embarking on. But needless to say, I went down there. I jumped on the plane. Now, while in Trinidad, Huckleberry Finn cannot hold a candle to me on what happened. And that, again, will be for another episode. But I went down there and I was selling garage doors. I was there on a 5-month open ticket, okay? Here's the funny thing about the 5-month open ticket. Once a month, I would be able to go standby at the airport and come home if I wanted to come home early, and it wouldn't cost anything, right? I'd be able to go to the airport, and if there was a seat available on the plane, I could fly home early. So needless to say, I felt like I had a 5-month ticket, but if things weren't what I thought they were going to be, I would be able to fly home early, no big deal. While I was down in Trinidad, I learned a ton of lessons, and I'm going to get into that on future episodes. But again, for the genesis here, I want to try as best as I can to paint a picture for you of how we've arrived here at episode 1. Well, when I was down in Trinidad, I had a bit of a falling out with the person I was staying with. And again, that's a whole episode in itself. We'll title that one Trinidad. Keep an eye out for it in the future. But I ended up finding myself in a position where I was stranded and I had no way to get home and I had no money. I had what they called a blue. You know what a blue is in Trinidad? It's a $100 bill. You see, the money's 6 to 1, right? So that $100 bill was really like $15 Canadian, okay? It was nothing. But the $100 was important because that was departure tax. You had to pay $100 to fly out whenever you did. Well, again, for another time, I had a falling out and I was stranded in that country. And the short version of what I did is I talked a complete stranger into buying me a plane ticket home on his wife's credit card, who was not there, on my word that I would pay him when we landed. Folks, again, a whole episode, it's coming. Right now, I smile when I think about everything that went down on that island and how it was literally God's design for me to experience those things, to prepare me to who I've become. But the short version is I closed that deal. And I did end up getting on a plane, and I ended up landing here, and I ended up paying that person back. $750 was the cost of that ticket. And that was the day I learned the first set of laws that changed my life. You see, I learned that day that if I want to do something, I'll find a way. And if not, I'll find an excuse. I learned that where there's a will, there's a way. And I learned that I'm the problem and I'm the solution. Again, we're going to do an episode on that. What a memory. The short version is I made it home. Now, when I made it home, I was an individual who had no high school education. I was an individual who had a life-saving career at the bank and launched it to go sell garage doors. And I was an individual who is still 20 years old, broke with nothing to his name, still figuring out life. It was that time where my parents, they allowed me to live at home, and but I had to be working, and I had to pay rent, a bunch of things. We'll get into that on another episode as well. But I remember I had to go get a job. We had to be employed. I remember talking to a friend of mine because I was looking for a job, and this particular friend worked at Walmart, and he said, "Hey man, I'll hook you up with an interview." And I was like, cool. He ended up hooking me up with an interview, and I'll never forget the day that I went to the interview. Man, I'm having so much fun just thinking about this right now. The day I went to the interview, I show up to a Walmart, and I'm in the Walmart. I'm in the best shape of my life with a tan you couldn't buy, right? And I'm feeling pretty good about myself, right? And I remember my friend went and told the guy, he said, hey, my buddy's here for the interview. And I remember the look on the guy's face. He's like, yeah, I'll get there in a minute. Yeah, And I remember thinking to myself, I'm in Walmart right now. And this guy is making me wait like this is that big a deal. It rubbed me the wrong way. Funny, I had no reason for it to rub me the wrong way because who was I? I was an uneducated human being, and according to the world, without a formal education, again, I was going to be in a factory banging a hammer. Does this sound familiar? Well, it was in that moment my life took a turn. I made a decision. I walked out. I just walked. I remember why. I didn't even tell my buddy. I was ghosting the interview. I just walked right out of it. I walked out of it and I walked to my car in the parking lot. And when I got to the car, I got in the car and I started driving, and that's where a decision hit me. You see, there was a car dealership that was around the corner from my house. And one thing I had always known, like in my gut, is I was going to sell stuff, right? I always used to say to myself, I don't know what, but I got a feeling I'm going to sell cars or homes. Cars or homes. I don't know. I'm going to sell stuff. That was always, what was top of mind to me. So I left this Walmart parking lot and I drove down the road and I pulled into a car dealership. Dennis was his name. I'll never forget. I'll save the last name. But I walked into this dealership and I walked into the used car building, and there was a gentleman there named Dennis, and I said to him, excuse me. And he said, yes, how can I help you? I said, I'd like to come and sell cars here. I remember him looking me dead in the eyes saying, well, what makes you think you could sell cars? And I remember looking him dead back in the eyes saying, what makes you think I can't? It was at that moment he picked up a telephone and he called over and he said, Carrie, I think I found what you're looking for. I'm sending him over. He looked at me and he said, go over into the new car building and ask to speak to Carrie. Carrie May. I'll say that last name. That was my introduction to the car business. That was my mentor. And I'll never forget, I talked to him for 2 hours that morning. He gave me 21 brochures. We're talking about a Chevy dealer in 2000. So yeah, the Tracker, the Cavalier, think of all of them. I got 20-something brochures. And I started the next day in the car business. That changed my life. Do you want to know why it changed my life? You see, I'm talking to you about the genesis of the Entrepreneurial Collective. I'm giving you some groundwork to understand what this is about and where this was birthed out of, okay? But you see, the teachers in the formal education systems I was a part of, they were telling me things like sales is risky, okay? Commission is risky. Commission's dangerous. This is what they were talking about. They said salary. Salary was the safe play, right? So this is the type of messaging I'm getting from school, right, for how many years up until this point in my life. But you see, when I spoke to Carrie, I'll never forget one aspect of our conversation. I remember saying to him, he was telling me, you sell cars, and when you sell a car, you earn a commission, right? There's no ceiling to your income, right? And I was like, wow, this sounds so cool. And I never forget when I looked him in the eye and I said, sir, how many cars am I allowed to sell a month? You see this smile? He let that smile out of his face and started laughing. I'll never forget, Rick, you got to hear this. Kid just asked how many cars can he sell a month, right? And then he looked at me and he said, kid, you could sell every single car on this lot. We will then buy you a plane ticket, send you on a vacation, and so we can fill the inventory back up for when you get back from the vacation to do it all over again. While they enjoyed a laugh at my expense, do you want to know what I heard? It was the first time in my life nobody was putting a cap or a ceiling on what I was capable of accomplishing. They thought it was funny. They just created a monster. So that's what got me into the car business. Now, many of you have come to know me through the car business. And yes, along this journey, my gosh, are you about to get inside the vault on the other side of the curtain of my automotive experiences? And I can't wait to share those with you, okay? But that landed me inside of the car business. And then in the car business, I spent a career spanning over a decade. And in this career spanning over a decade, I successfully performed at all roles. I was a new car sales representative, a used car sales representative, F&I business manager. I was a subprime business manager, a sales manager for new and used. I've done every role inside the dealership, and I have crushed at them at that. Well, that is what brought me to a point of starting my first business. And that first business is the one that many of you have come to know as AlanDickie.com. As an automotive sales trainer. Yeah, I was somebody who had seen how amazing this industry was, but also how incredibly poorly it was being run or approached, if you will. It seemed to be right on the cusp of a generational shift, right? Things like the internet were coming out. Customers didn't need to come inside dealerships to get all the information. They were able to acquire information from the comfort of their own homes, which assisted in them making good decisions. This had a lot of old school sales representatives unprepared on how to handle this new customer. But for me, it seemed normal. I mean, duh, how else would these people go about shopping? Well, through those experiences, I started this company. And in the infancy of that company, it wasn't about money, nor has it ever been about money. It has always been about freedom. As you're going to see in this video, I mention it. Which two amongst 1,000 will define success the same? Yet we all define failure as man's inability to reach his goals. Well, success for me was doing what I want, when I want, how I want, with whom I want, whenever I want. It had nothing to do with money. If you paid me just enough money to afford me those other freedoms, I was in. I'll take two, please. Well, that was how my business started. And I'll never forget, when my business started, I was in a position that many of you are in right now. $2,000 a month. Yes, $2,000 a month. That's exactly what I had to generate so that I could play another day, right? I needed to make $2,000 a month to keep the dream alive. It took me almost 18 months to really believe that I had actually arrived and that I had a thriving business, because every single month it was clawing and scraping. You see, I was figuring out how to be an entrepreneur via the Braille method. There was no mentor. I was doing it all by feel, and there was a lot of stumbling blocks along the way. Bumped my head and stubbed my toe a number of times. However, I was committed. And much like I had explained to you, I learned from the Trinidad experience, if I wanted to make this work, I was going to find a way. And if not, I'd find an excuse. And guess what, folks? I'm not in the business of excuses, and neither should you be. Well, I ended up successfully performing at my business. I actually ended up creating bigger incomes than I had ever seen in the automotive industry. Massive six-figure incomes. Well, massive to me at the time. And this was around 2012, 2013, and that's when I took a long, hard look at the internet, and I said to myself, this is insane. If the local television station, the most popular one, was going to afford me the ability to utilize their television station to film as many commercials as I wanted to every single day, come buy a car from Alan. Hey, I sell cars. Come buy a car from me. Wouldn't I put a commercial up every second of every hour of every day? It would only make sense to, right? Well, that's what the internet screamed to me, is an opportunity to do that. Because of that, I looked at it and I said to myself, why not? I know there's plenty of people who are utilizing this tool to become extremely successful. And luckily for me, perhaps ignorance is bliss. I simply said, why not? And then I made a decision to say, I'm going to do it. Well, this led to me getting online, starting to deliver value to the marketplace, right? Starting to pay attention to what they enjoyed as far as my content was concerned, what they saw value in, also what they couldn't really care too much for. It was a lot of trial and error to learn that formula. Ultimately, I learned it. And if you Google my name or check me out, you'll see it for yourself. Now, I'm not King Internet here, nor am I claiming to be. However, I am somebody who has managed to utilize that tool to create a business, a company, which is not called TripleThreatTrainer.com. It's myname.com, and it produces multiple seven-figure revenue streams, which afford me my goal to do what I want, when I want, how I want, with whom I want, most importantly, whenever I want. Does that sound attractive to you? I'm sure it does. Here's the point, folks. Over the last 10 years, right? 12 years, I've utilized that tool called social media very successfully at that. And I've parlayed that tool into, again, a number of revenue streams that allow me to live a life that I truly want and deserve to live. And that's why I'm living it. It also taught me an incredible skill set that I believe is fully transferable. That's right, folks, transferable to you. You see, the fact of the matter is you were not born to work, pay bills, and die. And even as I say that, some of you, many of you, feel caught in a jail of working to pay bills and die. And the only reason you're experiencing this is due to ignorance. And ignorance, by definition, is a lack of knowledge. You see, nobody's teaching you. Nobody is showing you the way. Nobody is revealing to you what has been revealed to me through 20 years of trial and error, through 20 years of doing things via the Braille method to find out the ones that work best, and then doubling down on them, recreating them to make it easy. So, the genesis. Here we are, the Entrepreneurial Collective. Folks, that's the short backstory of how we've arrived here. You see, what I've learned over the last decade and change is even inside of the car business, a glorious industry that has delivered so much amazing fruit and abundance to my life. However, it also has remained abundantly clear to me that the ones who take advantage of the automotive industry, like I am, like I have, like I continue to learn and develop and to grow are few and far between. And the fact of the matter is, the business is filled with a lot of people who want to piss and moan and bitch and chew about what they don't do, about what their dealers don't do, about blaming everybody but themselves as to why they don't perform. They fail to understand that blame is the energy that creates slaves. And then misery loves company. And so they create strength in numbers. And there's some of you watching right now who are on these very dealership floors. And you're watching this right now because this is the word you need. This is the word you want in your ears every day because this is a like-minded mentality. A mentality that knows we make decisions. There's no victims in life. There's only creators. And that's exactly what we're going to do here as long as we have breath in our lungs. We understand that a coward dies 1,000 deaths and a soldier dies but once. Folks, the Entrepreneurial Collective podcast is here for one reason and one reason only: to take those of you that haven't been shown and don't fully understand how, and to show you exactly how to not hope, wish, or want, but to guarantee your outcomes. Now, why? Why am I doing this? Well, let me answer for you. Because I'm fed up. Let me ask you something, folks. Do you know where the wealthiest spot on planet Earth is? Where? When I ask this question to audiences, I hear things like Dubai, the Congo. A lot of diamonds in the Congo. No. You know where the wealthiest spot on planet Earth is, folks? It's the graveyard. In the graveyard is where so many gifts to the world are buried. Songs that never got written, poetry that never got composed, inventions that were never brought to bless the world, right? And so much more. Why? Because human beings just like you, who were not born to work, pay bills, and die, who were born with a purpose, because every single thing in existence on planet Earth exists with a purpose, prove me wrong, including you, were sold a fake bill of goods. And that fake bill of goods was this bullshit of 9 to 5 at a job, which stands for just over broke, which has you mad, angry, and frustrated at the world right now as you watch this. Now, here's the good news. You don't need to be mad. And you don't need to be angry. Because the answer's arrived. The answer's right here. The answer is the Entrepreneurial Collective and its inner circle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you through this podcast and through these episodes just exactly how certain I am about all these things. And that's ultimately why, as I said in the beginning, remember this day and remember this link. Because this is the link that is going to change your life forever and have you start living the life you want and deserve to live. Short and sweet. I don't know how short and sweet it was, but all I know is I am so jacked and I'm so excited to embark on this journey with all of you, right? This journey of the Entrepreneurial Collective, where we are going to start to tackle all of the questions and concerns that are out in the marketplace for budding entrepreneurs like yourself and for successful existing entrepreneurs who are ready to take their operations to new heights. This is why we're here. And along the way, we are going to start robbing the graveyard of the riches that are the gifts that exist inside of all of you as human beings, born and existing here on planet Earth with purpose. We are going to expose all of these, and we are going to start serving the world through our businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just the beginning. Do me a favor. Be sure to click and subscribe. Make sure you stay tuned to get all notifications. The content is about to start coming hot and fast. And as always, chime in the comments. We're here to answer your questions, and we're here to continue to evolve, because you want to know what I'm sick and tired of? I'm sick and tired of watching bullshit TikTok videos of people pissing and moaning about how hard life is. Because you want to know what you don't see on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook? You don't see all of us winning, telling you how amazing we think life is, because we're too busy living these amazing lives and we feel no need to combat the noise of mediocrity on planet Earth. Ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, check us out. Don't miss an episode. We're coming at you hot and fast weekly. It is the Entrepreneurial Collective podcast. I am your host, Alan Dickie, and I will look forward to seeing you very soon on our next episode. Make it a great day, and thanks for spending some time with us.